Hello, dear friends, and welcome to Story Time. Today, we are going to read a folk tale from a country that is very, very far away from us, the country of Kyrgyzstan. It's located in Central Asia, and much of its territory, it's either deserts or steppes, big, vast plains with not much anything out there. But people do live there and do a lot of wonderful things despite all the hardship of living in such a country. Since the dawn of time, people there were known for their toughness and their ability to survive in the climate that goes hot and cold. Deserts can get very cold at night. They breed horses, they build their homes, they create wonderful fabrics, and they come up with wonderful stories. And this is just such a story. Our tale is called Three Swans with Black Wings. There once lived a man who had two sons. When he grew old and knew he didn't have long to live, he summoned his sons and said, "My children, after I die, divide everything I have equally between you." But no sooner than the old man died, the elder brother took over everything. The younger brother became offended and said, "Very well, if that's how it is, I don't want anything. I'll find my own fortune." The younger son left his father's yurt and set out into the world. A yurt, by the way, is a traditional home made out of, out of woven fabrics and long posts. So you can see what one looks like. Here you are. He walked and wondered how much injustice there was in the world. Some people had a lot of everything and some had nothing. If it was up to me, he thought, I would make my people happy. I would help everyone live well and would never allow the wealthy to abuse the poor. He walked and pondered and suddenly came upon an enormous pit with a wooden staircase leading down. He paused and wondered, what could be in there? He couldn't resist and went down the steps. And it sounds like, once again, my biggest cat can't resist our story time and decided to come over and listen and contribute his remarks. So here we are at the staircase. The staircase was so long that soon he couldn't see daylight. Finally, he ended up in front of a large, heavy door. The youth pushed the door and found himself in a palace. There were many rooms in that palace, and all of them were richly appointed, with silk rugs and bright luminaries. The young man went from one room to the next, until he finally got to the very last one. He opened the door and saw a girl sitting on cushions. Her braids were long and black, her cheeks were rosy, her teeth were like white pearls, but her eyes were unkind. "Who are you? How did you get here?" she asked angrily. "I came from up above, from the mountains," the young man said, "and I don't know how to get out." "Since you are here, you must stay here forever," the girl shouted and jumped up to run out of the room. At the same moment, all the lamps in the palace went out. The youth only just managed to grab the edge of a silk scarf wrapped around the girl's shoulders. He followed the beautiful girl through the palace until she reached the last door, opened it, turned into a black swan, and flew away. All that was left of her was the scarf in his hands. He looked around and saw the familiar staircase. He followed it out of the dungeon, and my cat just moved the tripod, put the scarf into his coat, and got back on the road. In the evening, he reached a large city on the shore of a beautiful lake surrounded by tall mountains. The water in the lake was so clear, one could see every pebble at the bottom. There was a crowd of people on the shore. "What's going on?" the youth asked. "Trouble," was the answer. "Every year, this lake overflows its shores and floods our home. The water never goes down until we throw a handsome boy into the lake. Today is the turn of the blacksmith's son." While they were telling this to the youth, everything around them changed. Wind rose from the canyon, heavy clouds covered the sky. The lake darkened, the air grew chill. The people were just about to throw the boy into the water. "Wait, people, what are you doing?" the youth shouted. "You don't even know why the water rises. Perhaps there's a way to stop it." "Oh no," the citizens replied. "The lake is filled by a wicked sorceress, and we don't know how to fight her." "I'm not afraid of her. But if I save you from the flood, will you fulfill my wish?" We promise," the citizens shouted. The youth walked outside the city and saw in the distance the spring that fed the lake. He came closer and saw the beautiful girl from the pit by the spring. Black braids, rosy cheeks, pearly white teeth, and those unkind eyes. The girl stood by the spring and poured water into it from a silver bottomless ewer. The spring bubbled over, rose, carried water into the lake, and filled it higher and higher. The youth ran up to the girl and grabbed her hand. "Beware, insolent boy, or I'll turn you into stone," the girl screamed. The youth replied, "I'm not afraid of your powers. I came to save people from trouble. I'm not afraid of anything." He said that and snatched the oar away from the girl. At the same moment, the spring stopped flowing over. The girl shrieked in terror, turned into a black swan, and soared into the clouds. The youth hid the oar in his coat and returned to the city. The people were overjoyed to see him, greeted him with singing and dancing, and lifted him on their shoulders. "What do you wish as your reward?" they asked. "I want to make people happy," the youth replied. Everyone around him was surprised. "You are too young to achieve that," they said. "Ask for something else." "I don't want anything else," the youth replied. He left the city and kept walking. He walked a day and another day. In 7 days, he saw another city. There was a crowd by the gates, everyone looking frightened. "What is your trouble?" the youth asked. The people replied, "We want to leave our city. A terrible firebird flies over every year. She pecks people and they fall terribly ill. Our wives and children are beside themselves from fear. We decided to go live in the distant mountains." "Where does the bird come from?" the youth asked. The people pointed, "From that cliff." "I'll try to defeat that bird," the youth said, "but you must promise to fulfill my wish." "Of course, anything you want," the citizens shouted. "Please help us." The youth set out toward the cliff. He climbed the hot rocks for a long time and reached the top by evening. He found a cave. He looked in and found the same beautiful girl. Dark braids, rosy cheeks, pearly teeth, and wicked eyes. The youth watched as the girl dressed herself in fiery feathers while holding a silver ring. She glanced back and saw the youth. Startled, the girl dropped the silver ring. She rushed to get it, but wasn't fast enough. The youth grabbed the ring and put it on his hand. The girl shrieked, turned into a black swan, flew out of the cave, and vanished in the clouds. The youth came down from the cliff and returned to the city. The citizens met him with joy and asked, "What would you like as your reward?" "I wish to make people happy," the youth said. "You are much too young for this," the citizens replied. "I don't want anything else," the youth said. He did not take any gold or silks the people offered him and left. He walked for a long time under the hot sun. Finally, he grew tired and settled to rest. Suddenly, he saw a black cloud floating across the sun. In the midst of that cloud sparkled a golden palace. I wish I could get to that palace, the youth thought. As soon as he thought that, the silk scarf turned into a tall staircase reaching all the way to the sky. The youth climbed it to the cloud and entered the magical palace. The staircase turned back into a scarf he folded into his coat. He walked around the palace until he reached the biggest hall. In the middle of it stood a table piled with all sorts of delicious things. As soon as the youth wanted to sit down at the table, something rustled behind the windows. He ran into the corner and hid there. One of the windows opened, and 3 black swans flew in. They shed their feathers and turned into girls. They looked exactly alike. All 3 were beautiful, and all 3 looked angry. They sat down at the table, started eating, and one of them said, "I've had some trouble, sisters. I have a large palace underground. I went there recently, settled down to rest, when a young man came in. He said he came from the land above. I wanted to leave him underground forever, but he turned out quicker than I was, and he grabbed my silk scarf. That scarf had all my powers." "I too am in trouble," the second girl said. "Some youth came to my spring, snatched away my magical silver oar, and all my evil powers disappeared." "I'm beside myself," the third girl said. "Some insolent youth climbed up my cliff and took away my silver ring. That ring held all my powers." The youth listened to this, walked out from his hiding place, and said, "I'm the one who took away your evil powers." "Return our powers," the black swans asked, "or else we shall die. We'll fly far away and never harm anyone again." The youth thought about it and said, "I don't believe you." "What do you want?" the sorceresses said. "I want to make people happy. I want them to have no war and no hunger. I want them to work peacefully in their fields with no one to abuse and oppress them. Fly away, blackbirds, while you can." The black swans flapped their wings and flew far, far away, beyond tall mountains, beyond blue lakes. They flew off to never harm anyone again. And this is the end to our story time today. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Thank you for listening, and I'm hoping to see you back here again.